Okay, so today we're diving into a silent crisis that, believe it or not, affects every single one of us, the disappearance of bees. Now, this is about way more than just a cute, fuzzy insect. It's a direct threat to our global food supply, to the health of our planet, so let's get into why this is happening, and more importantly, what's being done to stop it. So, to really get a grip on what's at stake here, just look at this number, 35%. That's how much of the world's food crops rely directly on pollinators like bees. We're talking about everything from the almonds in your breakfast to the apples you pack for lunch. I mean, just try to imagine walking into a grocery store where over a third of the fruits and vegetables are just gone. That's the reality we're facing. All right, so just how bad is this problem, really? Let's start by digging into the scale of this silent crisis, the truly startling numbers behind the decline, and the key things that are driving it. And look, this isn't just happening in some far-off corner of the world. On both sides of the Atlantic, the numbers are frankly terrifying. In the US, beekeepers are losing a staggering 30 to 40% of their colonies every single year. Meanwhile, over in Europe, nearly 1 out of every 10 wild bee species is facing extinction. What we're seeing is a synchronized global decline. So, what's behind this collapse? Well, it's not just one single culprit, you know? It's more like a perfect storm of factors. First, their homes and their food sources are just vanishing because of habitat loss. Then, they're being poisoned by pesticides that are everywhere. And if that wasn't enough, they're also fighting off new diseases and trying to survive the crazy, unpredictable effects of climate change. It is truly an assault from all sides. Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom. And that's the good news. This story is just as much about the incredible, ingenious solutions that people are coming up with all over the world. They're finding really creative ways to rebuild the world for bees. Let's start with how they're tackling one of the biggest issues, the loss of their homes. Check this out. One of the most brilliant solutions is something called a pollinator highway. The easiest way to picture it is like an interstate system, but built just for bees. It's a whole network of wildflower corridors that are designed to stitch together all these isolated little patches of habitat, creating one continuous path for bees to travel, find food, and, well, thrive. And the difference it makes? It's night and day. I mean, just look. On one side, you have these little isolated islands of habitat. And that leads to small, weak bee populations that don't have enough food and have no way to connect with each other. But on the other side, once you put those corridors in place, you get this thriving, interconnected network. It lets them forage, migrate, and build much stronger, more resilient populations. And you might be thinking, okay, that's a nice idea on a slide, but this is actually happening. It's happening on a massive scale. In the UK, a project called Beelines is making this a reality. They're mapping and creating over 150,000 kilometers of these highways, literally weaving the country back together for bees and all sorts of other wildlife. It's incredible. Okay, get ready for a twist. Something you would probably never expect. When you think of a paradise for bees, you picture rolling green countryside, right? Well, it turns out our concrete jungles, our cities, can actually be better for them. Some recent studies are showing that urban bee populations can be healthier and even more diverse than their rural cousins. So why? What's going on? Well, for starters, think about it. A city park, or even a backyard garden, has a huge variety of different flowers, unlike a giant farm that might just have one single crop. This gives bees a much better diet and a longer flowering season to get food. But maybe the biggest factor? Cities are mostly free of those heavy-duty agricultural pesticides used out in the country. And cities are catching on. Places like Paris are actively creating bee-friendly zones and even putting beehives on top of public buildings. So rebuilding their world is absolutely crucial, right? But that's only one piece of the puzzle. We also have to stop harming them in the first place. We have to change the rules of the game. And that's where policy and regulation really come into play. Let's take the European Union as a perfect case study here. For years, the evidence was just piling up that a specific type of pesticide, called a neonicotenoid, was absolutely devastating bee populations. So the EU started to act. It began with some initial restrictions back in 2013, then it ramped up to a comprehensive outdoor ban in 2018, and finally, just recently in 2023, they slammed the door shut. And that 2023 ruling? Wow, that was a game changer. The EU's highest court basically closed a major loophole that some countries have been using to get around the ban. It sent this incredibly powerful message that protecting pollinators is not optional, and that these rules have real teeth.
And you've got to understand, this wasn't just some feel-good environmental decision. This was a massive economic one. Every single year, pollination from bees is worth about 3.7 billion euros to the EU's agricultural sector. So banning these pesticides wasn't just about saving bees, it was about protecting a multi-billion euro industry.
Okay, so top-down government action is powerful, no doubt. But the real, lasting change, that has to come from the ground up. It has to come from everyday people. So let's look at how ordinary citizens are being empowered through science and education to become a huge part of the solution.
This is where things get really cool, because literally anyone with a smartphone can become a field scientist now. With an app like iNaturalist, it's so simple. You see a bee, you pull out your phone, you snap a picture. When you upload that photo, you're not just sharing a picture, you are contributing a critical data point with a location, a timestamp, to a massive global database that actual scientists are using to track the health of bee populations.
And if you think this is just some fun little hobby, think again. This data has real-world power. Take the rusty-patched bumblebee, for example. Thousands of observations from ordinary people created this crystal-clear picture of its rapid decline. That gave scientists the hard evidence they needed to get it officially listed as an endangered species, which unlocked all these vital new protections for it.
You know, getting adults involved is one thing, but if we really want to secure the future, we have to get the next generation on board. And that's why school gardens are just so brilliant. They're so much more than just a place to grow a few flowers. They're living laboratories where kids can see pollination happen up close, understand the ecosystem in a totally hands-on way, and actively help create a safe haven for local bees.
All right, so we've looked at everything from massive, country-spanning highways to international law, all the way down to a single school garden. It's pretty clear there's no one single fix, right? So let's tie all of this together and look at what the big picture is really telling us.
And really, if there's one thing you walk away with today, let it be this. There is no magic bullet here. Saving the bees isn't about choosing one approach over another. It's about doing everything, all at once. We need the habitat restoration, and the smart regulations, and the citizen scientists, and the educated kids. Each one of these actions makes all the others even more powerful.
Because at the end of the day, let's be real, this isn't just about feeling good about saving an insect, it's about our own bottom line. The work these pollinators do for our food supply is valued at, just look at that number, up to $577 billion a year, globally. That's just staggering. Protecting them isn't a cost, it's one of the smartest investments we could possibly make in our own future.
Which really brings us to the heart of it all. These tiny little guardians of our ecosystem, they're more than just insects. They're a bellwether, a canary in the coal mine for the health of our entire planet. As we've seen, their survival and our own are deeply connected. Our fate and theirs are intricately intertwined.